then largely leaves us with the third theme that you explore in your evidence in relation to the health risk services contract. Can you, now the committee's already had quite an extensive explanation from General Puleng about supply chain management and eventually how that contract was awarded within his component. But can you then explain to the committee how you begin to intersect with this health risk contract that was awarded to Mr. Matlala's company?
Okay, perhaps before I start, just to confirm with the committee that I did not form part of any structure, be it the BSC or bid specification committee, bid evaluation committee or bid adjudication committee. I was not part of such structures when this contract was awarded. This was awarded by the BAC that is chaired by Lieutenant General Fani, and an SLA was signed by Lieutenant General Kua, who is the end user and who had requested these services to be procured on their behalf by supply chain management. I'm on leave in December. I've never formed part of any meeting that was called by the minister when the articles came out. I was not in office. I was on leave. When I came back from leave in January 2025, I get to be briefed by the internal auditors that were obviously appointed by the National Commissioner, having been tasked by the minister in terms of the issues that were raised in the media surrounding this contract.
Can I just clarify things? The internal auditors come and brief you, are the internal auditors in your line department?
The internal auditors reports directly to the accounting officer. However, it is an environment that I work with closely with the indication to say they understood the implication of this particular investigation. What implication will it have on the financial statements? You will note that this would have been the last quarter of a financial year, and we were preparing to close the financial year and subsequently to put together a set of financial statements. So I work very closely and coordinate the audit issues in the organization. That will be the internal audits as well as the external audits, as well as the activities of the audit committee. So the internal auditors together with the chief risk officers are the offices that I oversee and monitor and support on a continuous basis. They are given this task. I came back from leave. They then come and brief me to say, CFO, this is a task that has been given to us in your absence. We are proceeding with the audit of this particular issue. We are flagging it in the process of you preparing to close the financial year and ultimately to put a set of financial statements. Take note. So I support immediately the work that was done or the work that was given to this team by the National Commission.
So what is the significance for those of us that don't, certainly for myself, are not familiar with the budgeting cycle? When you say it was in the fourth quarter and they were raising this investigation they were undertaking, what was the significance of that?
The significance was that by end of March, we will be closing the financial year. And after the closure of the financial year, then you are expected as a CFO to then put together a set of financial statements that you'll hand over to the external auditors to audit and determine whether your financial statements are credible and they indicate all the affairs of the department. So there is a note that we need to disclose. If there is any irregular expenditure, if there is any unauthorized expenditure or any fruitless and wasteful expenditure that has been incurred by the department for that year under review. So this essentially would then affect, if it is deemed to be irregular, it will then have to be reported and disclosed properly. So the auditors do brief me and we support the work that they do. And in the first week of March, a formal preliminary report is given to myself as well as General Fani to say the preliminary indication is that this contract is irregular. There's a possible irregular expenditure that you need to note. Now we do have.
Can I ask? You say that this is in March.
This is in the first week of March.
You are given a report saying there is concern in relation to this contract. and there's a possibility of declaring irregular expenditure in relation to this health risk services contract.
Yes.
You say that they briefed you and General Fani. Did they brief General Fani with you because he is head of the supply chain, or how does he become part of the conversation?
I indicated, Chair, that they then give me this report with a covering letter addressed to myself as well as General Fani. And the reason for that is that General Fani is the custodian of the irregular expenditure register. So immediately, an assurance provider, be it the internal auditors or external auditors, flags a transaction as a possible irregular expenditure, you are obliged to then report it and record it on the irregular expenditure as such. And in terms of the National Treasury Framework on irregular expenditure, you must then immediately ensure that you appoint somebody to then conduct a determination test to determine and come to a conclusion and confirm that either this indeed that has been flagged by the auditors is not correct or it is correct. So they had that indication. It was a formal letter that accompanied that report that was submitted to myself as well as General Fani in this regard. So what I then did the following day, having been finished with this report that talks about the possible irregular expenditure, of course, we then requested supply chain management to uplift this transaction on the irregular expenditure register as a possible irregular expenditure. I then approached the National Commissioner to say, this is a contract that was awarded by the BAC that is chaired by General Fani. The framework requires us to then determine and confirm that indeed this is irregular. I do not see that General Fani will then deal with that particular process. So I need to assist you. Let us appoint somebody immediately to ensure that we are within the timelines as required by the framework to do this determination test. I wrote to the National Commissioner. The National Commissioner agreed, and we appointed a very competent person from Gauteng Finance, and we then instructed that investigating officer to ensure that within 30 days or on or before 30 days, that determination must be concluded. Where I am sitting in the next 30 days, it will then be April. And I would need to then to start to put together these financial statements and to have a decision on this particular contract. So the IO goes on and investigates.
Just to clarify, when you say IO, is that investigating officer?
The one who is then doing or conducting a determination test for us. Right. They go on, they complete the report, and somewhere in May, they bring back the report, and it is confirmed that this contract is irregular. What does that mean? It means it was awarded in contravention with various supply chain prescripts. It was awarded by the BAC. So it is confirmed. I then instruct supply chain management to say this transaction has to then move from possible irregular expenditure from the register to confirmed irregular expenditure. What then this means? It means the register that will come to me or to be submitted to me to put together note 24 on the financial statements. It is a register that will then have these transactions or this transaction confirmed as irregular, and we have to disclose such. So we then instructed supply chain management to upgrade it from possible irregular expenditure to confirmed irregular expenditure. And the amount.
Can I ask you a question at that point? Because when General Fani was with us last week, he said that he was not sure whether there had been a determination test that was done and whether that determination test had determined that there was irregular expenditure. Are you confirming that that determination test was done? Are you aware if that was shared with General Fani?
I shared it with General Fani. And I instructed supply chain to update the irregular expenditure register so that when they submit it to me, to then conclude note 24 of the financial statements, that transaction is there as confirmed irregular expenditure.
So then the financial statements were, when the financial statements were concluded, and I think this is at paragraph 31.4 of your statement. In note 24, or maybe you explain it because I think you're much more fair.
Okay. So in the set of financial statements, you have different notes that you will then have to disclose these types of expenditure. For the purposes of these discussions, I will then refer to note 24. If the committee has gone through our financials, that note then requires us to disclose this. There's an amount of 466 million that we had disclosed as irregular expenditure that was confirmed for 24-25 financial year. Within that 466 million, this contract constituted 48 million. These were all the payments that were made from August, if I am correct, since the inception of this contract. So all of them, as per the recommendation of the determination test to say this contract was awarded irregularly, therefore any expenditure that would have been incurred since the inception of this contract is then deemed irregular. So those figures amounted to about 48 million. There are a few invoices that remains on the system. I then instructed my team to stop those particular payments so that then we do not perpetuate the incurrence of irregular expenditure. So within the 466 million that is disclosed on that note, it has other various contracts and various transactions, but the 48 million relates to this particular contract. The committee will note that I have tried to simplify it or summarize it on the presentation that I have attached. We have various contracts there. On
Just give us the page number, the page number that you're looking at in the annexes.
Give me a few seconds.
I will assist you. I think it's page 389 of the annexes, annexure PPD 24.
Yes, Chair. It starts from 386 with a cover page there. So I tried to unpack the 650 that the Auditor General had flagged on our annual report. That 650 million consists of the 466 that was incurred in 2024, and there are other amounts of transactions that were investigated that had taken place prior to 24-25 that were then confirmed in the financial year 24-25. That is why the amount is 650 that was discussed with the portfolio committee from the AGSA. Then the next subsequent slides are then unpacking what is lying on this particular amount. You'll see that there's a number of contracts there. Majority of them would have been contracts that would have been awarded and they were deemed irregular. They would have been awarded by the BAC or at supply chain management headquarters, and then you do have other transactions that are on quotation basis that would have been incurred by various cost centers in provinces. You will note that a procurement takes place from a police station to a district to a province to head office. So the auditors, when they audit everywhere. They will then select provinces and stations where they will go and audit these procurement processes, and from time to time they will highlight these particular non-compliances all over. But when you look at this, the bulk of this irregular expenditure that was disclosed in 24-25 is in relation to bids. This will be tenders that were awarded, and provinces do not deal with tenders. Tenders are only dealt with at head office supply chain management. So within all this, this one that talks to Medicare constituted 48 million. These were invoices that or payments that were made prior to the cancellation of this contract, of which the cancellation took place in May.
Yes. I just wanted to correct. I think I heard you say 28 million. I've got 48 million.
It's 48 million.
So out of the overall 460 that's disclosed in note 24, 48 million of it
relates to this contract.
Yes.
Yes.
And what I understood you to also be saying is that of the bulk of the irregular expenditure that sits in the SAPS relates a lot to issues of bids and tenders.
Yes.
And those are issues that come mainly out of head office in relation to the supply chain management department.
That is correct.
And we are, could you then discuss what steps now have been taken? Because we know an internal audit has been done and was completed in April. And in your evidence, you now explain that what you've also had to do was declare the irregular expenditure, and that was done with the financials of the last financial year. Can you take us through what further steps have now been done in relation to this contract to be able to get to some accountability?
Okay. So we then disclosed this as irregular prior to the submission of the financial statement. And I get further briefings from the internal audit team. And we were of the view that, when it comes to irregular expenditure in SAPS, there seemed to be lack of accountability and the consequence management is not real. You have irregular expenditure taking place all over. Managers appointing people to do disciplinary investigations, and the disciplinary investigations, when they come out, the outcome is that a person must receive a written warning, a person must receive corrective counseling. So these, according to me, are not real consequence management because they do not deter this behavior. That is according to me. You have people who are doing procurement and breaking the rules of procurement. The question is this deliberate? Are people breaking procurement rules deliberately to commit fraud? So this is a problem. This is a culture in SAPS where irregular expenditure, you will find that there's no seriousness and accountability on it. So having an experience of some of these transactions where investigations were done and the outcome had said nothing must happen to a person or a person must get a written warning and so on and so on. We as myself as the CFO and other structures such as the audit committee, the internal auditors, the risk management, this is a concern because if we do not deal with irregular expenditure decisively and ensure that there is real consequence management, we will never be able to resolve this. People will continue. We do not know whether they deliberately break these procurement rules with the intention of committing fraud. Then myself and the chief risk officer, we approached the National Commissioner. We said, National Commissioner, this particular contract has caused a lot of harm for the department. There is reputational damage. The department is in disrepute. Yes, we have disclosed the 48 million as irregular, but we can't go on in this particular fashion. So we will need to get to the bottom of this in terms of identify where were the lapses and who was responsible for this because the damage is too much. We then advise the National Commissioner to say, avoiding the risk of appointing somebody to then do an investigation and come back and tell us that somebody must get a written warning. Let's rather pursue this forensic audit investigation. So we advise the National Commissioner because this matter, it's an embarrassment. We are tired of management or senior management not dealing with irregular expenditure the way it's supposed to be dealt with. So we approached him from a risk management point of view to say, we will appoint somebody to do an internal investigation and then the report comes out and it says somebody must get a written warning on a damage like this and an embarrassment like this. So it is rather safer that we then channel our energy and all the reports that are on the table that we support this forensic investigation. This forensic investigation is dealt with by experienced people who will be able to unearth this maladministration that has happened here and give us the real people who must be held accountable with the possibility of recovering of monies in this particular regard. And the National Commissioner supported us in that regard. That forensic investigation is in the reporting phase and is being concluded And we are looking forward to the outcome of that report so that then we can implement real consequence management and serve as an example or as a deterrence so that then we are seen to be serious in terms of these particular issues, because it starts small, breaking the rules in terms of quotations, and then it grows. And if you are not going to deal with this as a department decisively or ensure that we implement real consequence management, then we are going to have a problem. The accounting officer or the national commissioner then, in addition to that, because it cannot be that we see this unreal consequence management, he has since then also established accountability sessions where he calls all of us, PCs, DIFCOMs, where everyone must bring any transaction that is deemed irregular and what were the disciplinary outcomes of that. And you explain yourself to say, why is it that the person has broken procurement rules and you gave that person a written warning? So this is a matter that the accounting officer is supporting, and those accountability sessions has been established in this regard so that we get to the bottom of this and we declare zero tolerance in terms of this unwanted expenditure in the organization.
Thank you. Chair, I think now is the lunch adjournment. Can I just indicate for purposes of the committee that I possibly only have another 5 minutes with this witness, and I'm in your hands with whether you want me to complete it now or to complete it after lunch.
You need how many minutes?
5.
To conclude.
I just want to invite the witness to conclude.
Yeah, no, that should be granted. Honorable Malem.
I think she must be granted that 5 minutes.
Yeah. No, we agree.
Thank you. General Dimpane, you've taken us through. So I have 2 quick questions. The first is, we've had 2 witnesses, or 1 witness. The National Commission has referred to this forensic report. General Fani has referred to the fact that this forensic report. Could I ask you, would you be willing to make an undertaking that once that forensic report is made available, that it was also shared with the committee in order to be able to inform the committee of what exactly went wrong with regards to the health risk tender?
Certainly, with the approval of the accounting officer, that report could be made available to the committee.
When do you anticipate that this forensic investigation will be concluded?
It has been indicated that next month, which is December. I believe before Christmas that report will be here.
Yes, so in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that forensic report investigation will be concluded. General Dimpane, is there then anything that you want to be able to highlight? As I've indicated, I'm in a position where I feel we've covered your evidence, but is there anything else before I hand you over to the committee?
Yes, perhaps I did not conclude on the issues of irregular expenditure. I touched on the 466 million, I touched on the 650. There is also an indication from the AGSA that there's a 2.4 billion that is not dealt with. And this has been reported and discussed at the level of the portfolio committee. Perhaps I wanted to then also give an overview in terms of what is this amount all about and what are the concerns of AGSA. In 2019, when I took over the reins as a CFO, this department was struggling with a qualification audit of opinion from AGSA, I think for 3 years. And one of the main reasons for such, it was the issues of irregular expenditure. There was an indication to say it might be that the department is understating or under-disclosing irregular expenditure to the tune of 900 million. And therefore, the Auditor General was unable to give this department an unqualified audit opinion. So this is a project that we undertook when I took over. I had a discussion with the auditors, both internal as well as external, with a view of putting together an action plan to resolve this, because it was important that we resolve this and we ensure that when it comes to issues of governance and reporting, this department is doing things the way they are expected. So it was a massive undertaking, Chair. We embarked on a process. The auditors indicated that for us to listen to you as SAPS, you'll have to go back from a police station to a district to a province and assess transactions 4 years back. You work it back 4 years. I think we went back 2016. We had to assess those transactions that we had ever made and convince the auditors and convince ourselves that those transactions were free from errors as well as irregular expenditure. It was a massive exercise that we undertook. Nonetheless, we did that exercise. The outcome of the exercise was then presented to the auditors, and the auditors were happy. And together with the other qualification areas, we worked, and those qualification areas were subsequently resolved. And I can indicate to this committee that ever since such, for the past 5 years, we have been in a position to submit quality financial statements that are not adjusted, are not and are free from material errors in this particular regard. So when we are embarking on this exercise, we pick up, we then unearth. Remember, we went back 4 years back. We then get these mistakes and these irregularities, and then we are then required to disclose them. So we disclose this in the financial statements as well as in the irregular expenditure register. So what is required, or what was required post that particular project, was for us then to deal with these transactions in a form that we appoint people to investigate. There's discipline. We confirm that there's no fraud, there's no losses, and so on and so on. And ultimately, in line with the National Treasury Framework, we then submit to the condoning authorities to then condone should we meet the requirements in terms of condonation, and we remove this. So the concern from AG is that the progress is slow in terms of dealing with this portion. And you will see this particular 2.4 billion that is spoken about. When you go through our annual report, it is lying on Part E of our annual report, that is the compliance. So we need to ensure that we expedite and we pull up our socks in terms of dealing with these transactions. The process has been a bit slow, Chair. We have been working with Treasury. There has been submissions from supply chain management to Treasury. Sometimes Treasury will bring them back without condoning, looking for additional information, and so on and so on. So we need to deal decisively and speedily with this 2.4 billion that is sitting there. I have since requested the National Commissioner to rather, in writing, give me these functions, delegate me these functions so that I can support supply chain management and we expedite this. I can confirm that we have had positive deliberations with National Treasury. They are willing to support us so that then we decisively deal with this Part E of the annual report, and we deal decisively with this 2.4 billion that is lying there. Progress has not been as fast as we would like it to be, but all the stakeholders are cooperating, and we are glad that Treasury has come to the table to assist us in terms of dealing with this. Those that would not have been confirmed by National Treasury, the framework in terms of paragraph 5.6 then tells you that the accounting officer can remove them from the books, but it's not going to be just a removal. They must comply with all the rules that are expected in terms of that National Treasury Framework. So I've subsequently requested the National Commissioner to delegate me that function to support him to deal with this. And that process is unfolding, and we want to believe that very soon our irregular expenditure register will be clean, and that Part E, compliance reporting on our annual report, will be clean. And there ought to be accountability where there is accountability that would have determined that people deliberately engaged in unethical conduct and engaged in activities that they were not supposed to engage themselves on. So we would request to be given support while we support the National Commissioner to deal with these issues and to ensure that this unwanted expenditure becomes a zero tolerance for the organization, and this culture of just not accounting becomes a thing of the past. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.